Hello and welcome once again. In today's video, we're going to be talking to all you parents who also play the role of coach and how to deal with other parents in youth sports. So we'll be talking about that next. All right, parents, we are parents. Sometimes we can get caught up in things. Now we're also going to play the role of coach. We got to know how to deal with the other parents, right? Those ones who sometimes might be a little difficult, might not see eye to eye with you. We to do that, we want to be empathize with them. It's an incredible skill that we need to really be able to master. How about some techniques that interrupt any negativity and interrupt some of these patterns that we may be witnessing? How about letting go of when parents are tough on you, if you're wearing it, that can be really hard. So you want to be able to learn how to let go. That and more, that's what we're going to be covering in this video. Inevitably, as a parent coach, you're going to have parents that might think you're being unfair. Their child's not getting enough playing time. You aren't putting them in the right position, the right circumstance, and whatever it might be. You're going to run into those moments. And I can tell you from my own experience, right? I had was coaching Babe Ruth baseball, 13 to 15-year-olds, and took this one boy who had actually coached some basketball as well, who had been a very, very good, dominant Little League pitcher. He was very big for his age. So he was still, as a 13-year-old, he's still big for his age. And he was a up and coming pitcher, right? There's ideas that, oh boy, he might be able to be a real dominant high school pitcher. Well, there was two high schools in our town, and I used to kind of joke with the kids. I knew a lot of them about going to the same high school that my wife taught at. It's like, why don't you go to that high school? Well, there's whatever personal issues there were about going to that high school with this family. The mom from that point on thought I was going to favor just the kids who want to go to that high school. It wasn't going to be fair to her son and the other kids. And I documented playing time to a T, so I could show like he's getting pretty much the same amount of playing time other kids do as a 13-year-old, maybe a little bit less, but he was only 13. It didn't matter. Wouldn't matter, right? I'm just favoring, and that was whatever the issue was with this mom in that high school and that thing, that kind of set this up, and I had to keep dealing with mom throughout the years that I coached. And it was more than one, but you can learn to do that in part through showing a little bit of empathy as well, right? So I began to understand as I learned a little bit more, and my wife knew the mom who had grown up in that city. So she began to be able to give me some idea of what some of that history might have been, and it began to kind of make a little more sense. It's like, oh, okay. And I would, the empathy is also when she did have a complaint, I would listen and I'd say, explain my position, show that I am doing playing time, I'm balancing things out. And just through the listening and the empathy, I wouldn't say that she necessarily totally trusted me, but she also didn't begin to make my life totally miserable or go to say this he should be on a new team. He should be on a different team now, right? This coach is just not being fair. None of that happened. I know she wasn't completely happy, but by showing that empathy, putting myself in her position and beginning to understand some of that backstory that I learned and tried to figure out, I could keep it smooth. So at least there wasn't this growing tension that made it even harder for the boy to enjoy that experience, right? And it begins with being able to listen So I've been talking a lot about a coach having to deal with difficult parents, but it doesn't just have to be a coach. In some of these other videos, we talked about different roles that parents can play. And you can be the parent of a child on a team, and there's another parent who is really vocal, negative, uh, and just not not a positive influence at all. Influences the entire environment negatively. So you may, from a parent perspective, being in the stands, want to try to help and deal with this particular parent who, you know, is loud and obnoxious. So how do you do that? There's an art to it. And again, when you have empathy, when you listen a lot, but it can be as simple as learning to ask some different questions. Like, geez, how do you do that? And that immediately that person's going to have what are you talking about, right? They might, right? And then, well, how do you be so critical of people all the time? Like, that's like, you're really good at that. Like, I would love to know how you do that so well. And, the person's going to go inside for a minute. And at that moment, there's a chance to embed some other suggestions. Doing something unexpected can interrupt the pattern. Having other people with you, backing you up, can be important because it's your ability to gauge that other person as well to see how extreme they may go. There have been a number of stories of parents, a, a mom or dad, it's usually a father, who fights with another father in the stands. There have been several of those instances that have made news. So you've got to kind of gauge things and figure out whether you want to have help and then get creative on creative ways to interrupt that pattern without it escalating. All right, parents, none of us tend to like conflict. So if there is somebody who's loud and obnoxious and pushy and doing these things that we don't like, whether we are in the stands listening to it or whether you're the coach getting the brunt of it, in any case, it's real important to be able to let that emotion go and not, we talk about take things personal. Well, we can't take it personal, right? So how do you do that? This is where I've talked about in lots of other videos in different subjects, is how important it is for us to have our own habits and rituals and routines. This is what I want to teach kids as well. So when you do have a real negative person, a difficult person you're dealing with, somebody who can begin to attack you personally or just make the whole environment bad and negative, is how do you let that go? And through mindfulness practices and breath work and positive affirmations and listen to good music and all these kind of techniques, it has a powerful impact on your ability to not begin to take it personal. And that is something that will play out far beyond youth sports. It plays out in everyday life, because whether you have a coworker or a boss or anybody like that who can be negative as well, learning to deal with that through those techniques, making those habit, is going to save you a whole lot of discomfort and a whole lot of stress. One of the most important things, and this is going to be a little bit more from a coach's side of things, but what you do as a coach can really help other parents if at any point you have to deal with some of those more challenging parents out there, and that is to have clear expectations. This is the way this team is going to be run. This is my rule on playing time. This is my rule on, however I'm handling discipline. If somebody's not hustling, not working hard, doing practices, but you lay it out. This is the way things are going to go. And it's kind of like a contract, and it's clear. You give it to all the parents, and depending on the structure of the team and organizational league that you're playing in, it could be you who runs a team, not under any umbrella organization. You've got a travel team, and you've organized, and you're going to start going to all these soccer tournaments. You've entered the teams in this, where you're kind of running the whole thing. Or you could be like coaching a team as part of a larger organization. So there's some guidelines and rules that you have to follow based on the governing body. In either case, making sure these are down and in writing and you're clear about how you're going to run things can be crucial. For example, I would always tell as the kids got older in baseball, all right, you guys are going to get playing time. We're going to balance things out, but we're also learning how to win. And there's probably going to be 3 or 4 guys who play most of the innings because they're like our core. They won't play every inning, but they're going to play a lot. And putting that right out front saves a whole lot of headaches in the end. All right, so we were just talking about that tough subject, dealing with difficult parents. We've wrapped that up. I encourage you to subscribe to my channel. Check out some other videos. In particular, you might want to watch the video, How to Be a Successful Youth Parent. So check that one out and come back and we'll see you in another video.